All right, so JavaScript preferences rename shorthand properties. Enable, disable introducing aliases for object shorthand properties during renames. Requires using TypeScript 3.4 or newer in the workspace. So let me show you what that looks like. When you rename a property, for example, we're destructuring user from the props, from the properties of this React component. And we might want to rename user to something else. And if we do that here, and by the way, you do that by right-clicking and rename symbol or pressing F2. So let's press F2. And then this little box shows up here, right? And if you give it another name, notice what happens to the destructuring statement. It's going to extract user from the props, but it's going to give it another name. Obviously, if you want just to change this to some other variable, you do this. But if you rename it, so if you had another name and you want to rename it, you can do that. All right, I found this to be very useful. Sometimes doesn't make much sense to have a particular, I mean, when you're destructuring, you don't really have a choice as to the name of the variable if it's already inside that object, right? I mean, if you want to extract user, you have to extract user because it's named user inside this object. But you might want to give it another name, right? So this is one way. Obviously, you can do it by hand, right? But I just find that sometimes you wrote the variable and then go like, yeah, this really doesn't make much sense here. I want to rename that. And then you can use the renaming feature and VS Code will automatically rename the variable in the destructuring statement for you. So this is what the setting pertains to. If you set it to false, this is what happens. You're actually going to change the actual name of the variable that you're extracting. Okay, so to me this doesn't make much sense because if you already wrote some logic, you just want to give it another name. Otherwise, you can just select and do a search and replace in your selection. So I'm actually going to leave the setting as true because I find this to be useful.